Imagine a beef that never really ended, it just went quiet. And in hip-hop, silence is sometimes more dangerous than threats. Just when fans thought things had cooled down, NBA YoungBoy made a silent move that instantly set off alarms across the rap world. No tweets, no interviews, no response. And that's exactly why people are worried. Because history has shown one thing very clearly: when NBA YoungBoy goes quiet, something serious is coming next. Boosie wasn't just talking. Warnings were being sent, lines were being crossed, and street tension was already in the air. But instead of clapping back publicly, YoungBoy chose a different route, one that has fans, insiders, and even industry figures saying, "This doesn't feel like music anymore." Social media started buzzing with theories. Street pages picked up on the shift. People close to both camps began noticing the energy change. The silence wasn't weakness, it felt calculated. The real question isn't whether the beef is back. The real question is how far this is about to go. What did Boosie say that couldn't be ignored? Why are people saying this time feels different from before? And why are fans now using one word over and over again to describe what's coming next? Deadly? In this video, we're not repeating headlines or chasing rumors. We're breaking down every move, every warning, and every silent signal that's reignited this beef and pushed it into dangerous territory. Stay locked in until the end, because once you see the full timeline, you'll understand why many believe this is no longer just rap beef. This wasn't supposed to happen again. For years, fans believed the tension between NBA YoungBoy and Boosie Badazz had faded into the background, not resolved, but dormant. No diss records, no direct interviews, just distance. And in hip-hop, distance often gets mistaken for peace. But peace was never really there. To understand why this beef is suddenly exploding again, you have to go back to the complicated history between these two artists, a history built on respect, disappointment, and eventually, betrayal. At one point, Boosie was one of YoungBoy's biggest supporters. Early in YoungBoy's rise, Boosie openly praised him, defended him in interviews, and positioned himself as a mentor figure. Fans saw Boosie as an OG who understood YoungBoy's pain, his background, and his raw street energy. But relationships like that come with expectations, and expectations are dangerous. As NBA YoungBoy grew bigger, more independent, and more unpredictable, cracks started to show. YoungBoy was no longer just a young artist looking for guidance. He became a dominant force who didn't need approval, and Boosie didn't hide the fact that he felt a certain way about that. Over time, Boosie's public comments started to shift. What once sounded like concern began to feel like criticism. Interviews where Boosie questioned YoungBoy's decisions. Moments where he spoke on YoungBoy's legal issues. Even subtle remarks about loyalty and respect that fans immediately connected to YoungBoy. At first, YoungBoy didn't respond. And that silence fooled a lot of people. Because if you followed NBA YoungBoy long enough, you know this pattern. He rarely reacts immediately. He watches. He listens. He lets people talk. And when he finally moves, it's usually unexpected. That's why this recent escalation feels different. It didn't start with a diss track. It didn't start with a tweet. It started with Boosie talking again. In recent appearances, Boosie made comments that fans interpreted as warnings, not just opinions. He spoke on street codes, on consequences, on how certain behavior eventually catches up to you. And even though no names were always mentioned, everyone knew who the message was aimed at. Hip-hop fans are experts at reading between the lines. And the reaction was immediate. Street blogs picked it up. Fan pages clipped it. Comment sections exploded. People weren't asking if YoungBoy would respond. They were asking how. Then something strange happened. Instead of clapping back publicly, YoungBoy went quiet but active. Fans noticed changes, movements, subtle shifts in behavior. People close to his circle started posting cryptic messages. Lyrics in unreleased snippets began hitting harder. More aggressive, less emotional, more calculated. This wasn't random. This was a message without words. And that's when the phrase started circulating. This feels dangerous. Because this wasn't two rappers trading insults anymore. This was about pride, respect, and something much deeper: control. Boosie represents an older generation of street-influenced hip-hop, where public accountability and hierarchy matter. YoungBoy represents something entirely different: an artist who rejects industry rules, ignores traditional respect structures, and moves entirely on his own terms. That clash has been building quietly for years. Now it's surfacing. What really alarmed fans was how people connected to both sides reacted. Instead of joking or dismissing the situation, insiders began hinting that things were tense. Those conversations were happening behind the scenes. That certain lines shouldn't have been crossed. When insiders stop joking, that's when fans start worrying. Because insider silence usually means real conversations are happening off camera. At the same time, YoungBoy's fan base, one of the most loyal and aggressive in hip-hop, began defending him fiercely. Any criticism from Boosie was treated as a direct attack. Any neutral take was rejected. The energy online shifted from debate to defense. And Boosie noticed. Instead of backing down, Boosie doubled down, reminding everyone that he's not new to this, not scared of controversy, and not someone who walks back his words. That's when the beef officially crossed back into dangerous territory. Not because of what was said, but because neither side blinked. YoungBoy's silence wasn't submission. Boosie's confidence wasn't bluffing. Both sides appeared committed. And in hip-hop history, that combination rarely ends cleanly. What makes this situation even more concerning is the timing. NBA YoungBoy is at a point in his career where he has nothing left to prove musically. His fan base is locked in. His influence is massive. And when artists reach that level, the stakes shift from success to legacy. Boosie, on the other hand, has always operated from a place of principle, whether people agree with him or not. He speaks his mind, stands on his words, and doesn't back away once lines are drawn. That's why fans are using the phrase "deadly consequences" not because anyone wants violence, but because this beef is rooted in identity, not entertainment. This isn't promo. This isn't clout chasing. This feels personal. And when things get personal, mistakes get made. One thing is clear: the beef didn't reignite by accident. It reignited because too much was left unresolved. We're going to break down the exact moment fans say everything changed, the silent moves YoungBoy made that raised alarms, and why some believe this situation could spiral if someone doesn't step back. Because what happens next could define both of their legacies. By the time fans realized this beef was no longer dormant, the damage was already done. Because the most important moves weren't happening on camera, they were happening quietly, in real time, where explanations don't exist and consequences come fast. What made this situation truly alarming wasn't anything Boosie said publicly. It was how NBA YoungBoy responded without saying a word. People close to YoungBoy's camp noticed it first. Schedules changed. Movement tightened. Communication became more controlled. This wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. YoungBoy has always been unpredictable, but this time felt different. In the past, he would vent emotionally, go live, or let his frustration spill into the public. This time, there was none of that. No emotional leaks. No impulsive reactions. Just focus. And in hip-hop culture, that type of silence doesn't signal fear, it signals intent. Fans began replaying old interviews, trying to pinpoint where things truly went wrong. One clip in particular started circulating again, a moment where Boosie spoke about respect, loyalty, and how younger artists sometimes mistake independence for immunity. At the time, it sounded like advice. Now, it sounded like a warning. And warnings, especially public ones, force a response, even if that response isn't visible. What really escalated things was how outside voices began inserting themselves into the narrative. Bloggers, street commentators, and even other artists started weighing in, choosing sides, amplifying tension that was already unstable. Once that happens, control is lost. Boosie, known for speaking directly and standing on his words, didn't back away. If anything, his tone grew firmer. He reminded people that experience matters. That the streets don't care about fame. That history repeats itself when lessons aren't learned. To some, it sounded responsible. To YoungBoy's supporters, it sounded disrespectful. And that divide is where things turned volatile. And that's when fans say the point of no return was crossed. Instead of easing tension, Boosie reinforced his stance, making it clear that he wasn't chasing clout, wasn't scared of controversy, and wasn't about to censor himself for anyone. Meanwhile, YoungBoy stayed silent. And the longer the silence lasted, the more ominous it felt. Street pages began speculating about meetings happening behind the scenes, about conversations involving people who don't usually want their names attached to drama. None of it was confirmed, but the consistency of the rumors raised eyebrows. Because when the same whispers come from different places, people start listening. Then came the music. Not a diss track, something more subtle. Lyrics began circulating from unreleased snippets that fans believed were coded responses. Lines about betrayal, about patience running out, about people mistaking kindness for weakness. Nothing direct, nothing explicit, but enough for fans to connect the dots. This is where the situation truly separated itself from typical rap beef. There was no rollout, no back-and-forth entertainment, just tension building without release. And unresolved tension is dangerous. Boosie, on the other hand, continued moving publicly, speaking, appearing, standing firm. To his supporters, he looked fearless. To critics, he looked unaware of how serious things were becoming. But Boosie has always believed one thing: if you stand on truth, you don't need protection. That belief has carried him through decades of controversy. The question now was whether that same belief could protect him in a new era against an artist who doesn't play by traditional rules. As days passed, fans noticed something else that added fuel to the fire. YoungBoy's inner circle went quiet too. No jokes, no casual posts, no dismissive energy. That silence extended beyond him. And silence spreading outward usually means orders are being followed. People started saying the phrase out loud, "This doesn't feel like rap anymore." Not because violence had occurred, but because the structure around the beef felt real. Calculated. Controlled. The scariest beefs in hip-hop history didn't start loud. They started like this. Quiet. Tense. Unresolved. One truth becomes impossible to ignore. Both sides believe they're right. Neither side feels the need to explain themselves. And when pride, history, and power collide without communication, escalation becomes almost inevitable. We're going to break down what happens if neither side backs down, how situations like this have ended in the past, and why fans are praying someone steps in before this beef defines the worst possible outcome. Because what's at stake now is bigger than music. At this stage, the most dangerous part of the beef isn't what's been said, it's what hasn't. Because when two sides stop explaining themselves, stop addressing the public, and stop trying to control the narrative, the situation enters a phase where outside forces start making decisions for them. And that's exactly what fans are worried about right now. History has shown us this pattern too many times. Some of the most tragic moments in hip-hop didn't begin with explosive diss tracks or viral insults. They began with silence, pride, and the refusal to step back. That's why people are nervous. Not because NBA YoungBoy or Boosie are incapable of maturity, but because neither man has built his reputation on backing down. YoungBoy's entire career has been shaped by defiance. He doesn't respond how people expect. He doesn't move when pressure is applied. If anything, pressure sharpens his resolve. And when YoungBoy feels disrespected, he internalizes it rather than airing it out. Boosie, on the other hand, has built his legacy on saying exactly what he thinks, regardless of who's listening. He comes from an era where speaking your truth was seen as standing tall, not stirring trouble. Walking backwards was viewed as weakness. So when these two mindsets collide, compromise becomes almost impossible. What complicates things even more is how fans and media play a role without realizing it. Every clip reposted, every comment taking sides, every blog pushing the most extreme interpretation adds pressure, not relief. At some point, the beef stops belonging to the people involved. It becomes a spectacle. And spectacles demand an ending. That's the part no one likes to talk about. Because endings don't always come from clarity or conversation. Sometimes they come from mistakes, from misunderstandings, from moments where ego overrides reason. That's why older figures in the culture have reportedly tried to cool things down behind the scenes. Not publicly, because public mediation can make things worse, but quietly where pride doesn't feel challenged. Whether those efforts are working is unclear. What is clear is that both sides are aware of how serious the situation looks from the outside. They see the headlines. They see the concern. And yet, neither has stepped forward to fully shut it down. That tells us something. Either the situation is being handled privately, or neither side is ready to let it go. And that uncertainty is what makes this moment so uncomfortable. Because this isn't just about NBA YoungBoy and Boosie anymore. It's about the culture watching in real time, hoping that history doesn't repeat itself. Hip-hop has lost too many voices to unresolved conflict. Too many careers have been overshadowed by moments that could have been avoided with one conversation, one pause, one step back. Fans aren't asking for peace because they're soft. They're asking for peace because they've seen where this road leads. The truth is, both men have already won. Both have legacies. Both have influence. Both have people who believe in them. There's nothing left to prove. And yet, pride has a way of convincing people that standing down equals losing, when in reality, it's often the opposite. As of now, the beef sits in a fragile space. Not exploding, but not cooling off either. And that's the most dangerous place of all. Because when tension lingers without resolution, all it takes is one wrong moment to change everything. One comment. One misunderstanding. One move taken the wrong way. Fans can only hope that someone, whether it's mutual respect, behind-the-scenes mediation, or simple wisdom, steps in before the consequences become irreversible. Because at the end of the day, this was never supposed to go this far. And if this chapter ends the wrong way, it won't just affect two artists, it will become another painful lesson for the culture as a whole. If you've watched this video all the way through, you already know that this isn't just another rap beef. NBA YoungBoy and Boosie Badazz are at a point where history, pride, and reputation collide, and fans are watching every move, waiting to see what happens next. Now it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think will happen if neither side backs down? Can this situation be diffused through respect and communication, or are we heading toward consequences no one can ignore? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let the discussion begin. Every comment matters, and we want to hear what the community thinks about this escalating beef. And don't stop there. Make sure to like this video if you found the breakdown insightful, because your support helps us continue covering the latest developments in hip-hop drama. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss updates about NBA YoungBoy, Boosie, or any other rap conflicts that are shaking the streets and the industry. This story is still unfolding, and the next moves could happen at any time. By subscribing, you'll be the first to know, getting the full picture before anyone else. Remember, this isn't just entertainment. These are real situations affecting real people, their legacies, and the culture. Stay engaged, stay informed, and let's see how this chapter unfolds together. Comment, like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because this beef isn't over yet.